Good evening and welcome to this special live town hall. Why are wildfires happen? Are you ready? My name is Roger, your moderator on the call. Your Douglas County Commissioners, Abe Layden, Laura Thomas, and George Teal are live and looking forward to this community conversation. Also joining are Tim Johnson and Mike Alexander from the Douglas County Office of Emergency Management, Captain Paul Rogers from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and Chief Rich Martin from the Castle Rock Fire Department. I would like to take a moment to tell you about the format for tonight's call. We want this to be very interactive, so if you would like to ask our panel a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Once the operator notes your information, you'll be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until you are called upon. So press *3 on your keypad to ask a question. Since our panel would like to hear from as many people as possible, we'll limit all callers to just one question. And when it's your turn, I'll call your name and ask you to repeat it for our live audience. We'll also be asking a couple polling questions during the call, and I'll explain that process in just a few minutes. Finally, I'd like to mention that this program will be archived and available on the Douglas County website within about 24 hours. So we know everyone has lots of questions, and we will get to those very soon. But first, we will hear briefly from your commissioners. Commissioner Layden, please get us started.
Thank you, Roger, and welcome citizens of Douglas County to this important conversation tonight around wildfire mitigation. I am really honored to be with some of the most valuable members of our community, our seniors, and I have with me Chuck, Steve, Larry, Gwen, Ed, and Daryl, who will be providing some questions for us and some input specifically related to seniors. You know, it's so important for us to have this conversation around wildfire mitigation. We know that the Hayman fire in 2002 resulted in 138,000 acres of land being damaged and about $42 million in property damage. We absolutely believe in hard, heavy, and fast in Douglas County, and that an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. We have developed a 6-point plan, which I'm hoping that our experts will share with you a bit this evening, but we also are really pleased with the multiple contracts that we have with aerial support to ensure that if there is a wildfire, it will be addressed immediately. I'm pleased to be joined by my fellow commissioners, Laura Thomas and George Teal, which you'll be hearing from shortly. Thank you, Roger.
All right, thank you. Next, let's hear from Commissioner Thomas. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roger, and welcome to our town halls. It'll be interesting to work with you tonight. Thank you. So my name is Laura Thomas. I've been a county commissioner. This is my 5th year. And one of the things we've always been concerned about in Douglas County is our wildfire mitigation needs. I was a state trooper when we had the Hayman fire in 2002. It started on June 8th, and it took several weeks before it was contained. There were 5 deaths from firefighters responding to the fire. They were killed in a car accident, and another woman who died from a fatal asthma attack. But other than that, nobody else was lost in that fire. After that, we learned that we have got to do things to protect our citizens from these wildfires, and I'm really pleased with the things that Douglas County has in place to keep you safe. One of the things we do is that we get funds from the federal government called PILT funds. That stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. And we spend about 100,000 of that on the 5 rural fire departments, because we know that if they have good equipment and they have what they need, they are better prepared to keep us all safe and stop those fires as quickly as possible. Again, don't forget that if you want to ask a question, press *3. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. And next, we'll hear from Commissioner Teal. Go right ahead.
Hey everybody, George Teal here. I only started with the county back in January, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about something that Commissioner Layden talked about. And that's the commitment that Douglas County is willing to make to prevent the spread of wildfires when they start. On February 23rd of this year, the county issued 3 contracts for aerial support on wildland fires. Trans-Aero helicopter contract secured 2 45-day exclusive use periods, as well as options for on-call, when needed air support, and the ability to expand or create additional exclusive use periods. The county also entered into contracts with 10 Tanker Air Carrier LLC, AeroSeat, Heliquest International, and Rampart Helicopter Services, utilizing both call when needed and also exclusive use service options. When we talk about wildfires, though, it's not just the county responsibility. We're willing to do our part, but we all need to be a part of the solution. Wildfire mitigation is not only a government responsibility, but it's a responsibility of landowners and residents here in the county everywhere. I look forward to hearing from the presenters today. And just remember, if you need to ask a question, press *3 to ask that question. Thanks, Roger. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, commissioners. As a reminder, as you just heard, if you would like to ask our panel a question, please press *3 on your keypad to get in the queue. You can also participate online. Just visit douglas.co.us/townhall. And now let's hear from Tim Johnson, who will start by sharing a few easy steps for how you can begin to prepare now for a wildfire. And he is looking forward to taking your questions along with other panelists in just a few moments. Tim, go ahead.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate the introduction there. Tim Johnson, I'm the emergency manager for the county. Before I get into anything too specific, I want to introduce the other subject matter experts that we have in the room this evening. We've got Chief Rich Martin with Castle Rock Fire. We've got Captain Paul Rogers with the Sheriff's Office in the Patrol Division. And we've got Mike Alexander, who's our Fire Management Officer and also the manager for the Emergency Services Unit. So we've got really the cream of the crop here in terms of what occurs with wildfire in Douglas County. So a couple of things that I want to kind of mention as we get started into this in terms of what occurs here in Douglas County. You know, one of the things that we often talk about, at least from our perspective in emergency management, is that we have a couple of fire seasons that we really prepare for, that we really think about every year. And a lot of this is intuitive to us and to the citizens of the county. Typically, we're very dry as we approach the end of May. We go through June. We get toward the 4th of July and all the festivities around the 4th. And so we prepare very, very heavily to mitigate around that time frame. And then we typically get a monsoon where we get some rain, we get some relief, we get a little bit of moisture that helps us out. And that'll carry us typically through till about the beginning of September. And then we get into the fall season, kind of our Indian summer, where the moisture really just kind of dries up for us. And it can be very hot, dry, and windy. And some of the bigger fires that we've had in our county have occurred actually pretty late in the fall. Cherokee Ranch fire that we had, it's been about 17 years ago or so, was I believe it was on October 30th of that year. So it's certainly possible for us to get fires late in the season on a second season like that. In terms of finding out information, a real quick reference that folks can go to is the county website. For wildfire information at douglas.co.us/wildfire information. It's a real good spot for you to go to kind of get more information on what we're doing and what we would like to see the citizens participate in when it comes to mitigating and helping themselves out and preparing themselves and their families. Emergency notification is a big piece of this, and we're certainly going to touch on that this evening as to how we're going to notify you if we have an incident, if we have specifically a wildfire kind of incident, and the emergency notification sign up, which you can do both at the county website and at the Sheriff's Office website, especially if you don't have a hardline telephone line in your home. If you're operating off of a cell phone, you need to register. You need to actively go in and register yourself so you can get the notifications when these events take place. So I don't want to continue on too long. We've got a lot to cover here, and we've got a lot of good information that we want to pass along. So Roger, thank you very much, and I'm going to hand it back to you.
All right, thank you, Tim. We are going to get the conversation started by taking our first questions. But let me remind you, we have a terrific panel available to answer your questions. So please press *3 to get in the queue early so we can be sure to get to you before the hour is up. And also, if you'd like to participate online, visit our website at douglas.co.us/town hall. So let's take our first question from Gary. Gary, go ahead.
Hi, this is Gary Haywood in Parker. There's an open space, a large open space behind our house, like so many others. And I was wondering if there's a wildfire back there, are we allowed to spray our hoses on it? And if not, what happens if we do it anyway?
Hi, this is Mike Alexander from Emergency Management. What we typically recommend, folks, is to not leave your sprinklers or hoses actively running. And the reason for that is so that we don't reduce critical water pressure to the hydrants so that firefighters can take advantage of those. Now, every case is different, and there may be a situation that would call for leaving those on if you're able to spray the open space. But typically, what we recommend is just leave the water available to those firefighting resources. Thanks for the question.
All right, thank you. Again, if you'd like to get in the queue, press *3. Let's hear from Hank next. Go ahead.
My name is Hank. I live in Franktown in a forested area. I have several disabilities, and so obviously I cannot drive. And what happens if there's a wildfire? How do I get out of here?
Hi, Frank. This is Tim Johnson, the emergency manager. We actually, it's been about 13 or 14 years now when we developed our Access and Functional Needs Registry for the county. So we want to know that you're there with disabilities. And the reason we have this registry, and we don't limit who can put themselves into the registry, but we want folks to take advantage of that if they feel that they're going to need some help or some extra time to evacuate if we have a wildfire situation. It really would behoove you to go to the county website and search under disabilities to get into the Access and Functional Needs Registry. Now, what that does, that acts as a planning tool so that our responders, when they're going into these areas, have an idea of who has signed up into the registry and who has said, hey, I have a situation here where I'm going to need some extra time or I might need some extra help to get out. And this is an avenue for you to get yourself signed up. We also, and certainly Captain Rogers can talk a little bit about evacuation. We take the time to make sure we literally do go door to door in these areas to make sure that we're getting everyone out as quickly as we can. Captain Rogers?
Yeah, that's correct. We identify obviously what needs to be evacuated first. We use the registry, so Tim is correct. Please, if you have disabilities, I would encourage everybody to sign up for any of the registries we have, but particularly the functional needs, so that we identify those immediately so that we can access you first and get you out of the danger zone before we go to different places. But we do also do door-to-door, street-by-street, functionally from where the biggest threat is out until we can get as many people removed as realistically possible.
Thank you for the question.
All right. Thank you. Let's take a question from Chuck in the hearing room tonight. He asks, I live in the meadows and the open space is great. However, if a major fire happened, fires could start all throughout the meadows. Is there any plan to fight fires when so many are burning?
Hi, Chuck. This is Chief Rich Martin. Thank you for your question. We do have plans for that. First of all of the agencies here in Douglas County, we may have responders that go to other bigger fires, say out of the state or out of the or throughout the country. However, we all maintain a minimum staffing level, and if a big fire should come in, we all share resources. So we all come together and we get the closest resources, and we manage that from an area geographically as to where they may be coming in from, to where it may behoove us to have them start working from there. Say if from the meadows, somebody from South Metro or West Douglas, if it was to the east, Franktown or Larkspur, so that we can get a handle on it. But then we all work concurrently together so that we can be as effective as we can.
All right, let's hear from Ed next on the phone. Ed, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking the question. This is regarding the emergency notification. And I recall there was an emergency notification sent out when the county reached a threshold for COVID. I think it was red status or something. And it directed us to the county site. And the site was unusable. Where normally it responds right away, it took hours for it to respond. So my question is, hearing that you're going to provide an emergency notification, will you be directing it to a site, and have you expanded the site capability so that we don't have a repeat of what happened during the COVID broadcast?
Thanks, Ed, for the question. This is Tim, the emergency manager for the county. So, like any system, and I certainly don't want to make any excuses, but, when we launch a code red message, an emergency notification to a very, very large group, it takes time for that messaging to go out. And I'm be quite honest with you, I'm not familiar with the situation around the COVID message that went out. It didn't go out through our office. So, but needless to say, the system works really well, and it certainly works when we're talking about a wildfire situation, which is usually limited to a particular part of the county. It tends to work very, very well, and the messaging goes out very quickly so that people can start to move and to take action. Now, we intend with those messages to give very specific instructions on where we would like folks to go. If we're talking about, sending you to a particular evacuation site or possibly even to the fairgrounds, we want to make sure that we're letting you know, so we give you some specific direction when that message comes out. We don't want necessarily folks, just leaving without any kind of knowledge as to where we want them to go. Now, as a citizen, as an individual, you're free to go wherever you'd like, but we're going to give you the opportunity to go to an evacuation site, to potentially a shelter that we'll have set up, if that's something that you would need during that kind of a situation. But the Code Red system, which is used pretty extensively throughout the Denver metro area, is a very reliable system. And we use it, I know within the sheriff's office, we use it almost on a daily basis. We send out multiple Code Reds for many different kinds of situations, obviously wildfire being one of those. Thank you, Ed.
All right, thank you. Let's take a question that was submitted online by Whitney. And if you would like to submit questions online, it is douglas.co.us/town hall. Whitney asks, for individuals who reside in an apartment building, what precautions should we take and what should we be expecting from our property management company?
Hi, Whitney. This is Captain Paul Rogers of the Sheriff's Department. It's really a good question, interesting question. Apartment complexes obviously we have multiple apartment complexes within the county, and quite frankly, they all respond in different manners. Generally, the apartment complex will, if we go to the management of the company, they have numbers for everybody, and they will start calling to notify people within their complex. If you signed up for our Code Red program as well, as Tim Johnson talked about earlier, you will also be notified in that manner. To sign up for Code Red, you just have to be in the county on the sign-up list, and they will send you a Code Red if something were to rise to the level of sending out a Code Red, and then you'd know in your apartment complex. As far as actually evacuating, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit later, but you should always be prepared. During wildfire season, they have some kind of a bag with clothes, necessities that should, for some reason, something occur that you need to leave immediately, you don't have to mess around. Get your animals and get your bag and get out of your house, get in your car and leave. Generally, in these evacuations, once you've left and we are doing evacuations and closing down areas for protection, you won't be allowed in. So take absolutely the essential items that you need and any pets that you might have. Thanks for the question.
All right, thank you. A lot of good questions so far and really important information. Just a reminder, we want to hear from as many of you as possible, so please press *3 on your phone or send us a question through the website at douglas.co.us/town hall. Let's take a short break from the questions and hear a bit more from Chief Paul Rogers about how evacuation decisions are made and communicated here in Douglas County. Chief?
Thanks, Roger. It's actually Captain Paul Rogers. So evacuations are happen in a couple different ways. Generally, if we have a wildfire situation, the fire department is dispatched first. They'll arrive on scene. We're dispatched kind of simultaneous with the fire department. We respond and meet together and put a incident command together that is both fire and police so that we can coordinate our activities. Then based upon the size of the fire, location of the fire, and, several environmental factors like wind and those kind of things, we'll make decisions about if there needs to be an evacuation, where that evacuation would be, which way a fire might be moving, and then we would send out notifications to the areas that were affected as far if an evacuation was needed. Most notifications will come out through the code red. All of our supervisors in the sheriff's department, as well as most of the fire department, can send out a code red message to evacuate certain areas. But we usually have, before those go out, we usually have a little time to plan and figure out exactly where we want to send the code red and what people that it will affect, what people in what areas. So that's our general response to how we would go there. Once we get there, if it's a major wildfire event like the Hayman fire years ago, back in the early 2000s, we'll begin to shut down areas. So if you live in an area, I kind of talked a few minutes ago about having bags ready to go. So if you live in an area that's forested or is susceptible to fire, like in the mountains or down in the Perry Park area, that's heavily forested and heavy grasses, you want to have a bag and you want to have a plan for your pets so that once that call comes in, you can gather your belongings, you can be out there immediately. I keep bringing up pets because people forget their pets regularly. And once you're out of the evacuation zone, we won't let you back into the evacuation zone. So it's good to remember to get those things the first time. So basically, to take with you, you want to get, obviously, all people and pets out. Any important paper or documents that are important to you should be packed in your to-go bag. Your prescriptions, vitamins, eyeglasses, anything that you might need for a stay that would last more than a day or two. Irreplaceable memorabilia, personal computers, anything that you think you need to have to survive. And as always, some form of cash, credit cards, whatever method if you had to go stay in a hotel for a couple of days until the fire was suppressed. So if you have that stuff all ready to go, and then you get the evacuation, or your evacuation should take very little time. And we are very generous with the time frame that we give when we give an evacuation order. We don't wait till the fire is right on top of us. We generally evacuate when the fire is several miles away so that we have plenty of time to get everybody out of the danger zone prior to the fire actually reaching that area. So that's the basic information related to evacuations, decisions, and how we do it for a major wildfire event.
All right, thank you, Captain. Now we'd like to do a quick poll to hear about things you have done to prepare for wildfire. It's easy to participate. All you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. So here's the first question. Tell us if you have signed up for notifications. Press 1 if you've signed up for Code Red and follow agencies on social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, and Nextdoor. Press 2 if you've signed up for Code Red. Press 3 if you follow local agencies on social media, like, again, Twitter, Facebook, and Nextdoor. And press 4 if you haven't yet signed up to receive any notifications. Please record your vote now, and I'll share the results with you in just a moment. And while you're voting, let's open it up to more questions. Again, star 3 if you'd like to connect to an operator and ask a question live, or send your questions through the website at douglas.co.us/town hall. Let's hear from Robinson. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I have just a general question, which is Aspen Fire Protection District is piloting with a Silicon Valley company in California, PANO or PANO IA Artificial Intelligence Technology that has a system that is paired with rotating cameras to detect and locate fires earlier. So my question is, has anybody heard of that pilot? And is there any possible future getting enrolled in that pilot that they're doing currently?
Hey, Robinson, thanks for the comment and the question there. Mike Alexander from Emergency Services. I haven't heard of that specific program or pilot, but the concept of having fire detection cameras is pretty widely used out in the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, and parts of Nevada and Idaho. And so we are familiar with that concept. I have heard one company was thinking about bringing that type of alert detection, camera detection network out to Colorado, but pretty large scale investment. We certainly would support them if they wanted to pilot a program out here. We would be glad to incorporate. Nothing currently solid in the works, but we hope to look forward to future opportunities. Thanks.
All right, let's hear from Sarah next. Go ahead.
I have a question about when you send out the emergency notifications. In regards to moving livestock, like if we get the first call, advising us that there is a wildfire, then we would need to jump on it and get the animals loaded up and get them out. Is that correct?
Hi, Sarah. It's Paul Rogers, Sheriff's Department. Yeah, exactly. You want to get, particularly livestock, since it's going to take you time and a lot of labor to move it. You're not moving just a single dog or cat. So as soon as you got a code red or any kind of emergency notification, you would want to immediately begin moving your livestock.
All right, let's go to Kelsey next. Go ahead.
Hi. Sometimes when we have fires going out west, you walk outside your house and you smell smoke. And you kind of wonder, is it next door or just over the hill or is it in Oregon? Do you guys have a website that you could give us that would help us reference where fires are so that, I know a lot of people would probably call the sheriff's office and say, hey, is there a fire near me? There's got to be a website that we could use.
All right, Kelsey, Mike Alexander. NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, they tend to put out products associated to like smoke dispersal, current and forecasted, and that tends to show where the sources of a lot of smoke production is. National Weather Service often puts out that same kind of information and shows maps, and we'll let you know. The Nightly News does a pretty good job of describing, where smoke is coming from and those kinds of things. So I would say definitely use all those different avenues, keep yourself aware and informed via those. We also, INCIWeb, INCI Web, is a great source of current fire activity. They post a daily situation report that lists every single large fire in the nation and can give you some detailed information about those incidents. Thanks for the question.
All right. Let's go to a question submitted by Steve down in the hearing room. Steve asks, I live in Stroh Ranch in Parker, which is the southern boundary of Parker. Do you have a good cooperation between South Metro Fire and you?
Hi, this is Chief Rich Martin. Yes, we do. We have a very good relationship amongst all of the actually southern metropolitan agencies, not only including Douglas County, but Arapahoe County, Elbert County as well. When we have large incidents, we're going to need each other. And we have mutual aid agreements that are already in place. Not only that, but at least once or twice a year, we do have drills to go over this so that we get familiar with each other and go over. We all have pretty much the same procedures that we use and equipment, but just so that we become more familiar with each other, we do that on a routine basis. And then on calls, the same way. We will respond with each other on calls as well as the trainings. So yes, we do have good relationships.
All All right, great questions. Jacob submitted this question online. He asks, are controlled burns still considered a fire prevention strategy?
Hey, Jacob, Mike Alexander. I don't know that I would describe it as a fire prevention strategy. Prescribed fires are a great tool, one of many tools that fire managers utilize to lessen the intensity of wildfires should one come through. They can provide some good natural defense opportunities. They're a tool fire ecologists use to help restore forests and other ecological benefit areas. And so they're just one of many tools that we utilize, you know, and we haven't seen one here in the county for a couple of years, but they're one of the many tools, and we look forward to possibly using them in the future.
All right, let's hear from Callian next. Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to ask if one, I would assume there's plans in place to utilize area transit for mass evacuations, being that I work for a transit agency. That's my first question. And second question also, are there volunteer opportunities to help you guys out should you need to put together incident management team or anything like that?
Thanks for the question. Tim Johnson here, emergency manager. We typically what we do, you know, in terms of transit situations, there is always the possibility of using the transit to help with evacuation to some degree. I can tell you primarily, though, what we do is we rely, and we have a great relationship with our school district. And our school district, with the amount of buses that they have, is always a potential resource for us in terms of moving folks, you know, out of an area. So we have used them pretty extensively in the past, and I can tell you we've used them very extensively during snowstorms here in the county. So, but yeah, I mean, we're open to using any and all resources available to us at any given time. And I can tell you, when we open up our Emergency Operations Center, we do a lot of brainstorming about anticipating what the issues might be surrounding an evacuation or surrounding, you know, doing rescues off of a road or mass casualty incidents and those kinds of things. So we're always evaluating the resources that might possibly be available to us. In terms of volunteering, we get that question fairly often in emergency management. The Sheriff's Office has a very extensive volunteer program, and we encourage folks to explore that. We have community safety volunteers through the Sheriff's Office, and we have a program that would allow folks to get some formal training through that and be a part of the Sheriff's Office and be available to volunteer. We don't typically use a lot of spontaneous volunteers. We would prefer that folks go through some kind of a formal training program and be affiliated with an agency of some type, you know, so that we know who we're dealing with when we have volunteers. We know the level of training, and we're much more comfortable using folks that have gone through a formal program to assist us when we're doing evacuations for a wildfire. Thank you for the question.
All right, great questions so far. Keep them coming. Here are the results of our first survey question. The question was, tell us if you have signed up for notifications. 45% of you have not signed up to receive any notifications. We hope tonight's call will change that number. 33% have signed up for Code Red. 18% have signed up for Code Red and follow agencies on social media. And 4% of you just follow agencies on social media sites. We appreciate your input and participation, and we'll have another survey question later in the call. Now I'd like to turn it over to Chief Rick Martin to tell us about how your local emergency responders prepare and coordinate their wildlife response throughout the county. Chief, go ahead.
Thanks, Roger, and thanks to the commissioners also for doing this for us tonight. It's always good to educate the citizens, and we feel that that's an important part. As far as basic information on the agencies, as I kind of touched on before, we all have mutual aid agreements within the area, so we can go across boundary lines, as it were. There really isn't such a thing anymore as, well, this call's in Castle Rock, so South Metro can't come in or whatever. We all co-respond with each other on a daily basis. And as I was mentioning before, We do trainings not only with individual agencies, but as a large group, like I say, at least once a year through the emergency management office here, and then through smaller areas, like if per se we want to get together with Larkspur and Franktown, we can set up training amongst those areas. So we are all familiar. We all have a basic level of training that we do for wildland firefighting. That can also transition to structural firefighting if we need to, so that no matter who shows up, we're comfortable with who that is. The Sheriff's Office also plays a big role in this. As the Captain was talking about with Incident Command, we do that practice also in these larger scale training exercises so that we become familiar with each other. And so when an incident does happen, we do know what to do and work with each other and are competent in the decisions that we're making that are in the best interest of the citizens. We also like to, when we have these opportunities, make sure that citizens, what you need to know to be prepared for some of these. As we know, there are always different seasons, and we had kind of touched on that earlier with where we're at. Obviously, this last week has been very hot. We'll hope for some moisture this weekend, but if not, then there's some concern for that. So we ask people to always be prepared. We really don't have a wildland season anymore. It goes pretty much around the calendar. So, there's never really that proverbial downtime. We like to make sure that we have that. Educational things, again, if you use the Wildfire Preparation and Prevention website that the county has, and again, that's douglas.co.us/wildfire information. There is good preparation material in there so that you can know what to do. So obviously we all hope that we never are in the situation, but we want you to rest assured that if the situation does arise, we're well prepared, we're well trained, and we work well together.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go back to your questions, again, *3, or submit them via the website at douglas.co.us/town halls. Janice, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for having this forum. I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. Last year, almost a year ago, our house was surrounded on all four sides by fire. The sheriff response was spectacular. The fire station, which is a mile down the road, was left unattended, unfortunately, on that day. And it put a lot of fear in us to have that be left unattended. And it still does, because we don't know if you're there or not. But we have learned an incredible amount since then from the various responders who came back and looked at the situation. And actually arson was involved. But my question is, having watched this firsthand and learning things from, I think his name was Einar Jensen, that works for South Metro. My question is, how important is it to keep the grasslands that surround us? We're all on 4 acres and we back up to open space. How important is it to keep that grass mowed?
Hi, Janice. Great question. Thanks for asking that. It's very important. We have home ignition zones, as we describe them, and they extend from your actual home, from your structure outwards. The first 5 feet is critical to have no burnable vegetation whatsoever next to your home. And then from 5 feet up to 30 feet, that's really the super critical area to have your tall grass mowed down, to space out your shrubs and trees and limb up those ladder fields, any trees you have on the property. That helps keep the fire at a low intensity, a low flame length down on the ground that can be easily suppressed by those firefighters coming in to save that property. And then from 30 feet out to 100 feet, we would look again and recommend more mowing if feasible, not as critical as the first 30 feet, but a great idea if you can do it, and continue with those projects of thinning out your trees and limbing up the ladder fields, those low branches that might connect with the grass. So great question. Very supportive of mowing, particularly as the grass dries out as we move into fall and all the grass goes dormant. That's a great time to mow, and then you won't have to do it again until next spring. Thanks. Great question, Janice.
All right, thank you very much. We have a lot of questions coming in about managing traffic and evacuations. We're going to hear from Cindy next, but Chuck in the hearing room and John on the phone have asked similar questions, so we'll kind of cover all of these. Cindy, go right ahead. Hi, Cindy, you are on live with the call.
Yes, I have a question about the traffic control if we had a serious fire here in Castle Rock in the Meadows, the access points to I-25 and the number of people that live here. How is this going to be managed so that people can get out onto I-25 in a timely manner?
Hi, Cindy. It's Captain Rogers with the Sheriff's Department. Specifically, the Meadows or those subdivisions fall within the city of Castle Rock, but I'll take this because this is what the Sheriff's Department does. Again, like I spoke earlier, we would start from the point the closest to the fire or threat and begin moving those people out as rapidly as possible. As we move away from the fire, we would continue to move people out. We then use access control points. The Sheriff's Department and OEM, these guys sitting around the table, as well as the fire department, would identify areas and which directions to send vehicles so that they would be leaving optimally the area and as the fastest route out of the area. So specifically out of your neighborhood, if you had a fire start towards the middle of your neighborhood, we would send them in both directions, towards Wolfensberger Road and towards I-25. And then cars would be diverted north and southbound on Santa Fe. They would be sent eastbound on Meadows and in a rapid fashion so we could clear out the neighborhoods as quickly as possible. Believe it or not, we can actually move a lot of traffic very rapidly if people just follow the directions of the police and sheriff's department and fire departments that are there. People are going to show you where to go. Just follow the direction and keep pace with the rest of the traffic that's going on. A good question, Cindy. Thank you.
All right, let's take a couple questions from the hearing room. They're similar. Ed asks, what are the current abatement programs? And Daryl, looking for his question now. Daryl, where has mitigation taken place in Douglas County? So what are the current abatement programs and where has mitigation taken place in Douglas County?
Okay, Mike Alexander, thanks for that couple of great questions. I think I'll focus on the mitigation aspect and where we've done mitigation in the county. You know, Douglas County is very proactive with wildfire mitigation. We really put our effort where our talk is. The Douglas County Open Space and Natural Resources has performed wildfire mitigation on every one of our properties. They're actively managing those properties, both for resource benefit, wildlife benefit, and wildfire mitigation. They've done a ton of work there. We also own, Douglas County owns numerous properties within subdivisions across the county, and our unit, the Emergency Services Unit, has performed wildfire mitigation in all those units where it's feasible and makes sense. So I would say we've been incredibly active. We've done a lot of work on our side of the fence in hopes of, then teaching those neighbors what they can do and what they can do to expand our efforts and provide really a community-wide wildfire mitigation effort. So thanks for that question. I know it's an important topic for all of us to keep that work going.
All right, let's go back to the phones and hear from Robert. Go ahead. Robert, you're live with our audience. Go ahead.
Oh, I'd like to know, how do I find out if I'm signed up for Code 3, Code Red, or whatever the other ones are? I don't really know if I'm signed up or not.
Robert, great question. This is Tim, the emergency manager. Code Red, again, if you don't have an old-fashioned telephone line in your home, you do need to actually go in to the website and sign yourself up. So if you're not sure, chances are you're probably not signed up. It's a very simple process. It really literally takes about a minute to sign up. We've got the code red through the website, douglas.co.us/code red. Now that's the emergency notification system. And so that's the formal system that our dispatch center would use to notify you of an incident that's occurring, of an evacuation message that's being sent out. But like's been mentioned earlier, we really encourage folks to also track things through the social media. The Twitter accounts, Facebook, Nextdoor, all of those social media platforms will have information relative to an incident. And I know folks are really hesitant about signing up for some of these, especially Twitter. We talk to groups all the time, and there's a lot of folks that really don't want to sign up for Twitter, but there's a way of managing that. So you only get the information from the agency that you want to get information from. You're not inundated. And I can tell you the public information officers for the sheriff's office, when we have a wildfire incident, they are posting information almost minute to minute on that site. So you can track exactly what's happening on an incident. So the easiest way to do it is to go to the website to sign up for Code Red. If you don't have that capability, you can certainly call our dispatch center, and they will assist you in getting signed up for Code Red. That's a pretty simple process as well, 303-660-7500. And if you need to sign up because you don't have computer access, they will sign you into Code Red. They'll get your information, they'll put you into the system. If you're not sure, again, go back and check. And one of the things we like to encourage folks to do is, at least on an annual basis, is to go back in and verify that their information is in there. We all know with computer systems and applications, there's always a possibility that somehow your information was lost. And we want you to verify that it's still in there and that it's still current. So those are the primary ways, to really access not only Code Red, but also information relative to a specific incident. We highly encourage folks to follow the sheriff's office through Twitter. That will get you the information that you need for your specific incident in your area. Thank you, Robert. Great question.
All right. Carrie, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for answering my call. We have an elderly relative living in our home, and I wondered if you had advice on when, how, and maybe even where we should go for evacuation.
Carrie, this is Tim again. The first thing I would say is that, have your elderly relative sign up for the Access and Functional Needs Registry. So then we have some visibility into the fact that you have somebody that's going to need some help potentially or need some extra time. Now, during a specific incident, you will be directed as to where to go. Everything that we do is very incident specific. Okay, we do not necessarily say you're going to use a particular route or go to a particular place every single time. It really does depend on what law enforcement and fire are saying about what this incident is doing, where it's going, what the threats may be, and what direction we want people to go so that they can remain safe. So that information is actually done in real time, and that information comes through the Code Red notification. But you'll also be directed by the folks that are on the ground doing the traffic control as to where we want you to go. Again, if you're signed up for Twitter, you're going to get that minute-by-minute notification of what's occurring. We work very closely with our public information officers to make sure that we're getting out shelter information and evacuation information as quickly as possible. We want folks to have an idea where they're going to go during a specific incident. We don't want you to be worried about that because we're going to be there, and the law enforcement folks are going to be there, and they're going to guide you through that process. So we don't necessarily, it's not necessarily, quite honestly, what we would like you to do is to be absolutely familiar with where you live and all the routes in and out of your neighborhood, because we could use any one of those routes to get you out. Very incident specific. Thank you for the question, Carrie.
All right. Let's do our second survey question. It's really not a survey, but we want you all to respond. Here it is. We'd like to make sure you stay informed about the topics you care about in Douglas County. If you'd like to continue receiving information from the county, please press 1 on your phone now. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our panelists, Tim Johnson, Mike Alexander, Captain Rogers, and Chief Martin, the Board of County Commissioners, and everyone else who've joined us tonight. Let's get back to a few more questions, and we're going to start with Cheryl. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for hosting this event, and it's certainly very timely given the hot weathers in our history. So I live in Castle Rock over in the Woodlands area. Anyway, of course, that's sort of foresty in parts, you know, somewhat foresty, a lot of scrub oak, a lot of dryness, and yet it's kind of a regular subdivision, so it's not a big rural area there. But what I was wondering was fire pits. You know, I think this has been an issue in the past, and I wanted to get the most current information now. Are homeowners allowed to have open fire pits? I don't mean the gas ones, but I mean things that would be, you know, manufactured with logs, et cetera, et cetera. So an open fire pit in Douglas County, let alone the town of Castle Rock.
Hi, Cheryl. Mike Alexander. We help the sheriff quite a bit on fire restrictions, helping decide when to go in and out, and we do have the resolution that speaks to the specifics related to what's allowed or not allowed. Now, I should start off by saying there's 2 stages of fire restrictions here in Douglas County, stage 1 and stage 2. Specific to your question about open wood-burning fire pits, those would be allowed under stage 1 fire restrictions. That's a lower level of fire restriction. In unincorporated Douglas County, those would be allowed under stage 1. I can't speak to HOA. HOA may have their own rules or limitations on things, and that would be between you and your HOA. Under stage 2, if we were to get into more severe conditions, drier and higher fire danger, your open wood-burning fire pit would not be allowed under stage 2. Chief Martin with Castle Rock Fire may have some more input for you.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, I think just for everybody's education, when we go to fire restrictions with Douglas County and the municipalities as well, we do work together. So if Douglas County decides that they're going to go to stage 1 fire restrictions, generally the other municipalities will too. Speaking specifically for Castle Rock, we do. Whatever the county does, we do as well. And those are our rules too. There have been questions that we've gotten in Castle Rock about the gas ones, and yes, those are okay. But we do follow the same parameters as the county as far as it's stage 1. If it's in a legal fire pit, then they're fine. But at stage 2, there is no open fire. Thanks again for your question.
All right, let's take a question submitted by Sarah. She asked, I want to make sure our whole family is prepared for an emergency without scaring the kids. How do I do that?
Well, this is Tim. Thanks for the question, Sarah. There are a lot of things that we can do to prepare the entire family. You know, as adults, you obviously have some sense of, you know, maybe what needs to be done, and we've kind of addressed some of those issues already this evening. But there, you know, when you have children involved and talking to them about emergencies and emergency preparedness, it can be a difficult discussion to have with them. There are resources out there and material that would be available to make that conversation much, much easier. The FEMA website or the ready.gov site has a section there for kids. It's ready.gov/kids. And it gives you some good information on how you can address some of these issues from a family perspective to get the kids to kind of understand how important it is without, you know, causing alarm in the children. And there are also materials and fun activities that kids can do that gets them to kind of think about some of these things. And it's a great site for you to potentially explore. And I think it's great that you're asking that question because it's important for the entire family to be on the same page when it comes to emergencies and emergency preparedness. And we really encourage, not only from the adult perspective, but also from the kid perspective, that everyone has some basic knowledge around emergency preparedness. A great question. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, let's go to another question submitted online. This one came from Kenneth. He asked, we have trees in the HOA green space behind our home, which are a possible fire risk. What is the minimum distance which should be free of trees behind our home? And how can I encourage my HOA to abide by official recommended distances for those trees?
Hey, Kenneth, Mike Alexander, thanks for the question. There's a ton of resources out there. I would highly encourage, first of all, going to the Douglas County webpage related to wildfire mitigation and wildfire information. You can find numerous resources there describing the home ignition zone and those distances from your house that again, you would want to treat for wildfire mitigation. They're broad guidelines. They're not necessarily specific to how many trees or exactly what distance, but we definitely recommend a heavier mitigation treatment to fuels within the first 30 feet is the most critical zone to treat those trees, brush and grasses within that zone. I would encourage just a conversation with your HOA and to refer them to those resources that we have on our website. And I'm sure we can show that website again up on our display so that you can go look at those and reference those for your HOA. And you can always give us a call too. Appreciate the question.
All right, let's take one more question from submitted online from Kim. She asks, would I be fined if I open the gates to let livestock out to escape in an extreme case of emergency?
Kim, that's a great question. I will tell you, during an emergency, this does happen, and it is a last recourse. What we encourage folks to do is to do some prior planning, some prior preparation. You know, if you have companion livestock on your property, if you have animals on your property, you need to think about how you're going to evacuate either with those animals or how you're going to trailer those animals, how are you going to get them off of your property, where are you going to take those animals, who do you potentially know that you could have an agreement with. It happens, and it happens all the time during wildfire, that the gates open up and the livestock are encouraged to just go, and we want to save those animals if at all possible. But again, it's really about the front piece of this. It's about getting out in front of this as best you can and doing preparation to really think about it. If you have horses on your property, do you have a trailer to transport those horses? Have you trailered those horses? Are they comfortable with that? When we issue a pre-evacuation notice, when we give you a little bit of time to prepare and to move, that's when those actions need to take place. And it's very difficult sometimes because there are situations where the action needs to be immediate. However, if you've done some prior planning and you've thought this through, it makes that a little bit easier for you. But again, as a last resort, there's nobody that's going to criticize you for opening up the gates and allowing those animals out. Realize that once we do an evacuation notice, a mandatory evacuation notice, you're not going to be able to get back in there, and the trailers to get your horses and companion livestock are not going to be allowed back in. So all of that kind of preparation needs to happen ahead of time. Great question. Thank you, Kim.
All right. Great questions throughout the call tonight. Tim, can you remind participants one more time where they can find more information about wildfire preparedness here in Douglas County?
Thanks, Roger. I appreciate it. So the website for most of the general information is at douglas.co.us/wildfire information. Okay, it's a great site. It leads you to other areas to get great information. Again, we encourage folks to sign up for Code Red, check your information within Code Red, sign up for Twitter, Nextdoor, and Facebook. Follow the Sheriff's Office on Twitter. It's extremely important. You'll get the latest information during a critical incident, and we want folks to be situationally aware of what's occurring within their neighborhood. So thank you, Roger. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the great questions from the citizens.
All right, thank you. If we didn't get to your question tonight, you are invited to submit any questions you may have about this or other topics to douglas.co.us/citizen-connect at any time. Be sure to join us for future town halls, and you can sign up to ensure you are notified at douglas.co.us www.douglascounty.gov/town hall. And before we conclude tonight's live town hall, we'd like to give your Douglas County Commissioners a few minutes to make some final comments. Commissioner Thomas, let's hear from you first.
So the first thing is I remembered to unmute myself. I haven't forgotten that important skill. So thank you everybody for listening tonight and asking these great questions. The better prepared you are, the safer you will be. And just remember that next week we start the great Douglas County Fair. So I hope to see many of you at the fair starting Thursday night at the rodeo. Thank you and continue to enjoy Douglas County. Be safe. Thank you.
All right. Next, Commissioner Teal, go ahead.
So much, everybody, for tuning in, calling in. Thanks especially everybody who asked those questions about livestock. With the growth here in the county, so many times we forget that at our roots, we are that pastoral area, and livestock are important both in our normal lives, but also in time of crisis. And thank you for the panelists that came along, chiefs, captain, guys. Thanks so much for giving out such great information and helping out the people of Douglas County as we go into this potentially dangerous time with wildfires. Thanks so much.
All right. Finally, Commissioner Layden.
Thanks so much, Roger. A huge thanks to our seniors and panelists here with us tonight. I think they had some great questions. Tremendous thanks to Tim Johnson, Mike Alexander, Captain Paul Rogers, Chief Rich Barton. I think we got some great information. And a special shout out to our communications team that put all of this together. Such a big part of wildfire mitigation is you knowing the steps that you can take. I have a hard time remembering long websites, so just Google Douglas Wildfire or Douglas Code Red. Let's get signed up so that you get those notifications. But again, thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thanks so much.
All right. On behalf of Douglas County, thank you for giving us an hour of your time tonight. We hope you will join us again for future town halls. Be well and good night.